who lives back in the States. I'm in Thailand, and he's a musician as well. And he was just looking for some part-time work. It might turn into kind of a full-time partnership with a service I'm launching called Just Record It. I actually bought the domain justrecord.it. And what it is, it's an end-to-end podcast production service where all you do is you record your episode, your interview, you send the raw audio file to our team, and we edit it, transcribe it to a high degree of accuracy, create show notes, create a blog post according to a template that you've chosen, create bite-sized social media that you can send to your guests to help you promote.
Oh, that's nice.
Basically what it is, it's the process that I use for my own podcast, which you'll be privy to kind of give it maximum exposure and engagement, which I'm going to be doing for clients. And that's going to be much more scalable than what I'm doing now.
I really like that idea. And it would even be good if they would cut out the boring parts for people. That's more difficult, but if you could actually do the value of that service actually goes not quite exponentially, but goes vertically up if you can add higher value processes. Like, so you would have one team maybe do the transcription, and then and the team doing the transcription could put some notes next to it saying if there are any technical glitches or not. And then it goes to somebody who's an editor and has a real feeling for what's boring and what's not.
Yes.
And then it goes, after that, it goes to the audio editor who cuts it down based on what the text editor did. And it's actually quite efficient if you do it in those 3 stages, because then you don't have, an audio editor is expensive. The person editing the transcript is moderately expensive. And the first person transcribing it isn't that expensive. And actually, if you did it the way I suggested, you could use a less expensive audio editor, because it'd be following a fairly tight script in the first place. Although you're still probably better off with a good audio editor who is almost native speaker in the language.
Totally agree with everything you just said. And what I'm telling my guy who's editing it, and he has a very keen ear for this kind of thing, and what I'm telling him is make sure that as you're creating these SOPs that you can hand it off to, a moron in Bangladesh. Not that they're all morons, but you know what I mean. A lot of them are. And he can do it, with a little bit of training. But I still agree with what you said, that you cannot compensate with a good document for somebody being incapable of doing the job well, or not having that expertise.
Yeah, you have to hear the language to be able to do audio editing. I used to do commercials as a commercials producer, so I had a lot of experience with audio editing. And your audio editor, to do a really good job, he should be quite familiar with the language. He can't just do it based on completely based on the text, but you should try to get close to that. You should try to get close to that. It's funny about the customer service issue. I don't know if you know this, but Amazon actually experimented with outsourcing a large part of their customer service to India. They closed it because Amazon is dependent on a good customer experience. And so they actually saved an enormous amount of money by having a huge customer service center in India. Sounds good, but Amazon is very good. They have very tight margins, so they're very good at tracking things. And what they discovered is that they lost more customers than they saved money.
Yep.
And most companies don't actually discover that until it's way too late. But it was actually much better for them to pay 10 times as much in a European country and retain the customers.
Of course. Which you'd think would be fairly intuitive, but it isn't, I suppose, if that's the road that they went down. But it's just impossible to find in my experience, I could be wrong, but it's very difficult to find an acceptable concentration of reasonably talented people who are on that wavelength of wanting to go the extra mile, really having a, it's very cultural, I've found, because if you, for example, if you live in Thailand or in India or in any Asian country, they don't have these values of the customer is always right. They look at it like, how much money can we get off this person before they get fed up with us?
I thought in Thailand they really wanted to please people and make them happy.
I'll give you an example, since you brought that up. This is interesting. So there's a Greek yogurt place down the street from where I stay in Phuket. It's run by Thais. A Greek owns it, but Thais run it. And so I'm looking on the menu, and you pick your bowl of Greek yogurt, and then you put the toppings in there. And one of the toppings options is fresh blueberries, which are quite expensive in Thailand. They come usually from New Zealand or from the US, and they're maybe about $6 or $7 a pint. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's cool. 30 baht, which is $1 for some fresh blueberries. I thought that was a good deal, so I picked it. The lady brings me the bowl of Greek yogurt, and it has all the toppings I picked, and literally 3 blueberries on top. So that's 33 cents a blueberry. And I say, to her, excuse me, but there's only 3 blueberries here. She says, yes, fresh blueberries are very expensive. So they're so eager to please you that they don't even consider the fact that it's a bigger displeasure to have your expectations so blatantly violated than to leave it off the menu. So their mentality, I mean, it's something you just have to experience. It's very paradoxical, the way they do things in Thailand, but it's not the way that Westerners do it. And there's a reason that they're behind, but they're catching up. This new generation is catching up.
So going back to Europe and Amazon has a very large customer service, and we do a lot of customer service for Germany from Slovakia, strangely enough.
You do?
No, not us, but Slovakia. Germany outsources now a lot of its customer service to Slovakia. It's another language. It is another culture, but it's close enough that it actually works out quite well. They save a lot of money in comparison to doing it in Germany, but they can achieve, I guess, similar benchmarks as to what they would achieve by having the customer service actually in Germany.
And you are Slovakian?
No, I was born in Vancouver.
Oh, okay. I knew you were Canadian because you said about.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
At one point, yeah. That funky thing that Canadians say.
You mean I said about properly?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, do you want to jump into it? We're kind of into it already, but yeah. So first of all, welcome and thanks so much for being here, Alec. The first question I'd like to ask you, this is the first question that I ask all my guests because I think it's a pertinent question, is how did you get into online business?
That's a very interesting question in my case. I was running an editing suite in Toronto, and we were doing some documentary films and online production for documentary films and dance films. We had some films that we worked on going to the Toronto Film Festival. It was lovely, but the work we were doing was largely artsy films and dance films, and so the budgets weren't huge. It was glamorous, you go to film festivals, but the budgets weren't huge. And my sister was a very successful real estate agent, and so she would have me help her with her computers and a bit with her marketing. And that was back in around 1999 or something, a long time ago. And I'd been away in Europe for a long time before that, so and this was my sister I was close to, and I actually wanted to find a way to have something in common with her. So I started to help her more with this marketing, and that led to me I'd already done a website for my production company, and that led to me doing her real estate website. And I'd had a lot of experience as a television producer and a commercials producer in Moscow, where I ran television for Saatchi & Saatchi and Gray advertising. And so I knew how to do, I knew how to do marketing, and we quickly became the best in Toronto for these real estate websites. And everybody wanted to have a website like my sister did, and so suddenly I had this online business.
So you built it yourself personally?
Yes, yes, I have reasonable technical skills, and I actually used to build all the websites myself with HTML, CSS, and what was a big part of my early website building was something called server-side includes, SSI, which has been replaced by PHP and dynamic websites. But server-side includes meant that you could put the menu on one side and just make a little call to that server-side include, and it would be instantly put into the page. And so it led to very fast websites. In fact, websites used to be a lot faster than they are now, because you were very close to the metal.
Yes, definitely. And I know you have a bone to pick with WordPress. Maybe we could get into that a little bit later.
Sure.
But how did you make the transition from working for others, quote unquote? We're always working for somebody, but how did you make the transition from doing, working for an agency in Moscow and doing this production company in Canada to working for yourself, and how did that sort of snowball into your current situation?
Well, it's in my life, I don't think even when I was working for somebody else, I ever saw myself as working for somebody else. Before I went away to Europe, I had actually directed plays that were semi-professional productions. I mean, with week-long runs and ticket prices and full houses, and fairly reasonable budgets. These again were done as part of university, like the university was giving the space, or the Royal Ontario Museum was giving the space, but ultimately I was responsible for the budget. So I'd already had this mentality of doing things as if you were doing it for yourself. And then when I went to work for these advertising agencies, I did it the same way. I mean, I got into some interesting conversations because I would come in, I would get everything done, and I would have no time. I was working 12 to 16 hours a day for months on end, and I would no time to hand in my expense reports. And I was making a good salary. So I would literally, if something was needed, I would just pay for it and pay for it and pay for it. And it was all billable back to the client, but normally an employee wouldn't do that. Normally an employee, but then nobody was nearly as efficient as I was, because if something needed to be done, I just did it right away. And so when I set up the editing company, I'd already had that sort of, I had that way of thinking already. Can we pause for a second, because I need to put in a power plug?
Certainly.
And then I'll be right back. So
no problem.
That's why I went blank for a second, is because I was like, oh my god, my computer's about to turn off. Okay, so picking up where we left off. So when I went into the editing business, I was already psychologically prepared to work for myself. And when I started taking on these real estate clients, I was already working for myself. I mean, I think it's a mentality you should never, ever, ever have, is the employee mentality. If you're an employee now and you have an employee mentality, you should get rid of the employee mentality. You should work in the person's company whom you're working for as if it was your own company. Because then, someday, and relatively soon, you will be ready to run your own company and your own business. Whereas if you live in that employee space and that employee mentality, when you do go into your own company, you will really, really struggle.
Could you bring that mic arm up a little bit closer to your mouth?
Sure.
Okay, that's better. Just want to get that full resonance. So, okay, but how did that lead you into Folio Vision in your current project?
Oh, actually, Folio Vision wasn't supposed to happen at all.
Ooh.
What
a Star Trek-like statement.
Yeah. I'd moved back to Europe because I'd done a dance film with an Austrian dancer named Anna Hein, who was brilliant. And I brought it back to Vienna to edit it. And I was actually planning to stay in this dance film and arts thing. And the websites and real estate was just part part-time job, so to speak. But the problem was, and this is something that will happen to people, the problem was I was really good at it. So I would just be trying to do it on the side to make sure that I could pay my rent and have my cameras and live a reasonable lifestyle, even though I was doing these arts projects. But people would demand to work with me. Literally, they would demand to work with me. I told one guy 4 or 5 times, I don't do insurance. Go to somebody else. Go to somebody else. Do somebody else. I'm not going to work on insurance. You're a nice man. I'm very grateful for the referral, but I'm not going to do it. And then actually he insisted so much, I finally ended up doing it.
For a lot of money.
Yeah, it was one of our better contracts. So in a sense, it was forced on me because the company got bigger and bigger and I couldn't do it myself anymore.
Yeah.
First it took over my life. So I was making a lot of money, but I didn't have the time to do my creative projects. And that was okay. But then it actually took up so much space that either I had to hire people and build a company, or stop doing it, or commit suicide. But you can only work for 14 or 16 hours a day for so long.
Let me get you to elaborate on this point for selfish reasons, because I'm at a similar crossroads now where my unlimited membership site support service, MemberFix, is it's either has to evolve into an agency type model where we grow and we ask for substantially larger commitments from clients, or I just fire most of my clients and politely and only keep a few on at a much higher price point because, and I'm sure you found this with your business, is that clients will ask for such a wide scope and breadth of different kinds of tasks that it's impossible to sort of productize it elegantly. You have to be an agency essentially, otherwise you cannot fulfill that value for which they're coming to you in the first place, which is this sort of done for you, all-encompassing type of thing. But the problem is that you get so involved in the operations because you're integral to them, you're the most experienced person there, most likely, that it takes over your life inevitably, and then you wake up one day, much like I woke up today, and thought, I gotta get out of it, you know? So
well, products are definitely the way to go, because we're trying to transition from being a services company to a products company, and we're partway through the transition. It's a harder transition than you would expect. I know that you've thought a lot about productizing your services, but that's really the way to go, because services do not scale. Services work every day you go to work, and services require the mastermind behind them. You can say, oh, well, I'll outsource all of these services. As you point out, the clients are counting on you. Now, in my company, I have I have 3 other people that clients, actually 4. I have 4 other people that clients would pay to work with.
And that you probably pay a healthy sum to have on your team.
Oh yeah, no, these people are paid very well.
Yeah.
But these are people that clients would actually pay to work for. But there's more than 4 people here. There's 20 something odd people. But the people that the clients would actually pay to work with.
Yes.
There's about 4 of them. So this is the problem. Now, and it's hard to find those 3 or 4. And I'd like to have 5 or 6 or 7 of those. But it's very hard to find those people. And so if you want to carry on in services, you've got to find people whom you can trust parts of the process to, that will do it as well or better than you will. The example you gave me before of wanting to find a partner to do this podcasting editing service, that's a very good model. You can trust that gentleman to do the same quality of work you would do yourself, or better.
Absolutely.
And so I would suggest that the way forward for you is, since I don't think you want to build this structure, is maybe to try to stay small, but to find as many partner companies as possible. So you're sitting there with your Rolodex and established business relationships with 5 to 10 other companies.
Yes.
And so the client comes to you because he knows that when he leaves your agency, all of his problems will be solved, or when he stays in your agency, all his problems will continue to be solved, depending on whether it's a one-time process or an ongoing process.
Mm-hmm.
But you know that you've got 2 or 3 suppliers for websites, and you've got 2 or 3 suppliers for content, and you've got 2 or 3 suppliers for security. I'm just making up different sections you might have in your business.
Yes.
And so you don't actually have to maintain all of that infrastructure.
Right.
You don't have to.
It's middleman marketing.
Yes, but people will pay for done for you. And ultimately you are still responsible for the whole thing. And since you're breaking it up into sections, none of your suppliers hopefully will try to take the whole client, because your suppliers are supplying one section. The client's coming and saying he wants a car. So what are car makers now? Car makers do the same thing now. A car maker actually orders all of the pieces of the car in different places and then puts them together and then sends it out to dealerships. And so the car maker has a relationship with the suppliers. Car maker has a place to put the pieces together, and the car maker has relationships with the dealers, and they have a brand and a reputation for quality. So if you're going to buy a car, you're actually not going to go and buy the pieces from Magna, because who is one of the biggest car supplier companies in the world. Although you might end up actually buying a car from Magna, because I think they own Opel now. So they actually tried to transition from being suppliers of the pieces to suppliers of the whole vehicle. But the place for you to be is the supplier of the whole vehicle. And people want that feeling of going to one place and having it done for it. But even if you look at Amazon actually isn't making very much. They do make a few things now, but they're not making very much. They just have the relationships with the customers and the relationships with the suppliers. They're right in the middle. So I think you're underestimating the value of being in the middle if you can retain your integrity and you can retain your brand.
Well, since you brought it up, in terms of the power of having good people on your team and paying them what they're worth, what kind of processes and systems do you have in place to make sure that that your hiring process is streamlined, so that you don't have people who sort of slip through the cracks and look good on paper, but then, and I'm sure you've had this experience plenty of times, I know I have, somebody has amazing resume, amazing references, you top grade them, you do everything right, but then they wind up just sucking. So how do you sort of prevent that? How do you find, let me rephrase the question in a very succinct way, how do you find rock stars and keep them on board?
Well, it's partly a question of finding them, and it's another question of actually producing them, because somebody who is a real honest to God rock star probably is already employed. So you actually have to be looking at people who have the potential, and then you have to develop that potential in them. In our company, we have a lot of trouble working with people who need a lot of supervision. It's like Google here, that people actually have to be self-starting and have to like to accomplish things themselves. When we take people into our company who want a lot of instruction and want a manager sitting over their shoulder, they usually fail. So what we are looking out for now is to make sure we don't hire people like that anymore. And I mean, they can be good looking, they can be nice, they can be well liked by their colleagues, but if they don't actually like to work independently, they will probably not succeed here.
Now, do you follow a strict process, like literally an SOP that says, okay, look for this, test them on such and such, or is it a fairly intuitive process that I imagine you might even do yourself?
No, okay, our hiring process is actually pretty advanced because we were larger at one point. We do a first triage. We even know what schools we'll take people from and what schools we won't take people from, because in some schools they actually teach people to think and to work quickly, and other schools there's one school for designers where they teach people to spend 3 months to do a single project or 4 months to do a single project. We're a commercial company. We can't have people that work that slowly, even if the work is brilliant. And then in some schools they teach people just not to think. It's a different school. And so we don't take anybody from either of those schools. And then there's a school where they have to hand in basically a new project every week or every 2 weeks. And they're trained to work quickly and efficiently. So we start with the school, and then to accelerate this, because it's really a long process, and then they go through a process of, they do tests and interviews and on-site tests. And then if it's a position, if it's not a junior position, then I interview them. Everything up to now has been sort of objectively graded. And then in the subjective section, I actually do follow intuition. And intuition is pretty reliable. With my team who also do hiring, I don't like to contradict them. So I'll often give people a chance, even though my intuition has already failed them. And over time, I'm less excited about doing that, because usually the intuitive process filters out the people who wouldn't fit, even though they fit the check boxes. And then the final stage, which I think would really help you, is when you first hire someone, hire them for 2 weeks. And actually Automatic does the same thing. You hire them, you pay them, but you don't train them per se. You only give them a tiny set of tasks to do. Mm-hmm. But they come to your office, they interact with the rest of your team, and they have to execute some tasks properly. And usually you can get rid of the people that won't work after that 2-week period. And there's no harm done if you do it in this 2-week period. I wouldn't advise keeping somebody around longer than 2 weeks unless you're fairly sure that they will fit. Now, of course, there are borderline cases.
Yeah, those are the tough ones.
They're not that tough. If it's a borderline case, don't keep the person. You're doing yourself a disservice and the person a disservice because they're line in your system. So unless somebody is a clear keep, stop. And actually, that's how we became smaller, is because to get bigger, we had to keep these borderline cases. And this is a bit of a warning as well. We grew and grew, but then we grew so big that our profitability went out the window. And I lost some good staff because the bonuses were lower to pay for all these people who were sort of being trained, and maybe we were keeping, and they were pissing the clients off, actually. Oh, I shouldn't talk like that. I'm trying to keep it clean.
This show is not PG-13, so have at it.
No, they were angering the clients, these people who were borderline.
Yeah.
And so the clients have a certain expectations of folio vision, and I don't want those expectations to change or lower. Our positioning is mid to high level. Like, the experience at Folio Vision should be hiring a first-rate international agency at really top dollars, except you don't have to pay really top dollar. We offer good value. But the service shouldn't be any worse than the most expensive agencies in New York or Los Angeles or London. The experience shouldn't be worse. And so by having these marginal people, we had a couple of big corporate clients not have the best experience with us. And so these were opportunities that we'd earned over years, and we lost those opportunities. We got paid, but the people worked so many hours on the thing because they were marginal that we didn't make any money at it.
Yep.
We angered these clients. We would have been better off not to hire these people and actually send that client away and say, I'm sorry, we're busy. we can't do it. That would have actually been better than doing the project with marginal people. Now, don't take this too far, because this only happened a few times, and then I stopped, made sure that we didn't do it again. And even those people who ended up unhappy, relatively speaking, the clients, they still actually got perfect websites that were functioning just the way they wanted, because in the end, the A team fixed everything, but the process wasn't what they wanted. So learn from my experience, and don't do anything that's borderline or anything that's marginal. If somebody is not a great fit, if somebody does not overwhelm you with how much you like them, don't even consider hiring them.
I like that. That really simplifies the hiring process, doesn't it? Even though you have this very sophisticated process to vet people, and it's very objective, and it's basically the just making sure that they're experienced enough. You still do the intuitive portion, especially for the higher level people, to make sure that you like them. And if there's any doubt in your mind, to say no. It's not worth the possible repercussions of bringing on a borderline. Could be no. You want somebody who you know.
Oh, somebody who I still have some doubts about might get a 2-week trial.
Okay.
Because I want to be open-minded always. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. If my team is really convinced of somebody, I want to give somebody, I don't want it just to be based on how I feel. This is not, our company is not some kind of Stalinist dictatorship or something where so I'll be inclined with the borderline people, maybe I'll give them the 2-week trial, but they'll be watched very carefully, and after the 2-week trial, they're gone. And even those people that are marginal for the 2-week trial, they're already pretty good. So that 2-week trial is essential, and setting the bar higher. So if you do both of those, you will simplify your hiring process. By setting the bar higher, you actually make the preliminary hiring process easier, because you already know ahead of time that you're going to have to throw out 80% of the resumes.
Yes. Now, since you touched on this earlier, Alec, what role do processes and systems play in your business? Is your business extremely well documented? Do you do you have your team contribute to the core documentation of your business, and is that an integral part of running things smoothly?
Folio Vision really took off as an agency. We had this marketing business and all of these real estate clients, which was very successful. But as a web agency, we really took off on migrations from TypePad to WordPress. We were the first to do them, and then we were the best, and probably still are the best. There aren't that many high-level clients migrating away from TypePad right now, so we don't do, the ones who wanted to leave have left. And the clients that are there probably have kind of crappy websites. There's a few exceptions. I mean, you could give me probably 50 names of people that we would actually love to do their migration still, but that's 50 names left out of what was probably 10,000. So we did this very process-driven business for a long time, and that was a great bonus to us, a great benefit to us to do this process-driven business, because we did learn the importance of documentation and following processes. And so on the things that we do regularly, we're quite obsessive about it. We have a huge amount of internal documentation. People have to follow the internal documentation. The strange thing is, even if you have the internal documentation, it isn't always easy to get people to follow it.
That's true.
But what helps is both our lead programmer and I, and both of us are very good at what we do. Both he and I know that if we don't follow the checklist, if we don't follow the process, out of the 20 steps, even he and I will drop 2 or 3.
Exactly.
So processes are not just for beginners. No. Processes are for everybody. Well, if you want to work quickly and efficiently, you have to follow processes. So we do that.
It's kind of like you just said, I'm very good at what I do, and I believe that anybody working at a high level probably has that confidence, but that doesn't change the fact that we are fallible, and that there are certain limits to the way that our minds operate that have been explored at length in books like Work the System and the Checklist Manifesto. But the closest parallel I can draw is with surgeons, with ER surgeons, is that they found that once they started instituting these checklists, and they did it as a pilot program in a few different hospitals around the world, that even the top level surgeons routinely missed extremely important little bits in this process to make sure that infections were kept at bay, and implementing just a simple checklist in a hospital could reduce hospital deaths over the course of a year drastically by hundreds of percentage points. Well, why wouldn't that be the case in business, where basically...
It is the case in business.
It is the case in business, exactly. You're making yourself more efficient. There's so much on your plate. It's inevitable that you're going to miss things. So I think what you said earlier about it's hard to get your employees or your team members to follow processes, I think that's often the case, not because of... I think that's the case because they don't intuitively, viscerally feel the value and understand the value of processes, because they haven't gone through that transition that we have of seeing the night and day result of having them and not having them. They're just told to follow them, and they're sort of self-starters, and they're probably thinking like, I don't need a process. I'm a ninja.
But you can sort these people out pretty quickly, because they will get caught with their pants down a few times within the first month.
What do you mean?
Then you actually have to take them aside and say, hey, Yvka, you know there's this checklist, you know there's this launch list. Why wasn't this done? Oh, I forgot about it. How can you forget about it? It's written down. Oh, I wasn't looking at the list when I did it. Next time, look at the list. So you're going to get into the... I thought we were going to talk about recurring revenue, but to talk more about employees, part of the way to get better performance from employees is to make a huge part of their compensation package bonus. And so then their motivation to make mistakes goes way down, because if they make mistakes, their bonus gets smaller. And the motivation to do a great job goes up, because if they do a great job and get great client comments and have some big successes, their bonus goes way up.
Okay.
And so we're really talking about a bonus that could be at least 100% of salary, actually.
Wow.
At the top level, they could double their salary by doing a really great job, and they could end up with nothing extra if they do a really poor job. I've experimented even with penalties, but very rarely. Penalties have to be deliberately sort of sabotaging something. You mainly do it with bonuses.
Okay, so...
And usually if somebody got a penalty, they'd probably be fired. But if you don't want to fire them, you have to give them a penalty.
Okay. It's kind of interesting little details about because as a business person, even whether you're running a membership site and you want to grow it to six or seven figures, or you're running a services business or an agency or some hybrid of the aforementioned, you sort of have to be this jack of all trades at the top. You have to be, like you said, this mastermind, and you have to understand these intricacies when it comes to HR and intricacies when it comes to content and marketing and sales, and you have to be kind of good at all of them, or at least have people on your team who you can come to and say, like you're the expert at this, sort this out for me, and they're going to do it. But since we started moving into recurring revenue, you're champing at the bit. Let's talk about your software business and how you sort of transitioned from pure services, as I understand it, to offering a recurring software mainly based around your video player.
Okay, well, we always have done a fair amount of recurring revenue.
In terms of retainers?
Yeah, because we have marketing clients for whom we do work every month. And I was thinking about recurring revenue, and if we didn't have this recurring revenue, which is quite high end, some of our projects would have been difficult to implement because we wouldn't have had the stable income every month. With the recurring revenue for the marketing and the permanent clients, it was always a fairly steady level, and we could actually make twice as much on the development side in any given month. But that would go up and down. And so having that backdrop of recurring revenue that basically got the rent and the salaries paid provides a lot of freedom to do better work elsewhere. So recurring revenue, I think you're really onto something, that recurring revenue is an essential part of a successful business. And so we have this recurring revenue from a few clients on the high end. Now, it's a very labor-intensive service. So I'm not even saying it's all that profitable, even though it's very high end. There's a lot of work to be done every month to make that money. But it does provide a lot of stability. So now we're trying to do recurring revenue at the micro level, because the video players are $75 a year. And actually, no, it's $75 to buy, and then it's $50 a year after that for updates and support. Mm-hmm. And so it's actually difficult because somebody's paid $75, and you now actually have to provide support and service to them. And this will actually destroy most software companies. And what we've done to make this work is that if you're using the free player, you can ask questions in the forum for free, and we'll answer them. We might answer them in a week or 10 days. Like, you'll get some kind of response, but you might actually get a real response to your question a week or 10 days later. If you're a paid customer, you can directly send stuff to us by email, and we will answer that almost immediately, like within hours.
I've actually, sorry to interrupt, but I've actually contributed to your forum, and I've also found that there's a bit of a community brewing there from these folks who have purchased at the first tier that chime in, and as I have done, to help the people who are having issues. So sometimes you don't even have to directly get in there because it's sort of taking care of itself.
That's beautiful when that happens. Actually, we should encourage more of that. It's nice that you pointed it out. We should encourage more of that. I'll have to think of how to encourage more of that. So then the second tier is these people who bought the plugin, but I can't build somebody a website for $75, right? Well, I can, but we won't stay in business. So those people can actually also book pro support incidents. So if we actually have to go to do a bit of work on somebody's website, you can pay us another $70, and we'll actually go in and fix your problem hands-on instead of just telling you how to do it. Some people want to just be told how to do it. We're happy to do that. And then some people want somebody to actually fix the problem, to set up Amazon S3 for them, set up at CloudFront. It takes, even if you know what you're doing, it takes an hour to do it properly.
It's a bit convoluted.
Yes. And to test it, right? You can theoretically do it, but then it doesn't work, and you have to see why it doesn't work. There's a lot of variables, and so we also have a service where we charge people to set up Amazon CloudFront for them, for example. And then we've recently sold some video membership sites. So where the person actually then pays us $1,500, and we set up the whole video membership site, including testing all their payment systems, including testing their membership things, including training them. And so you think $1,500 is a lot of money, but
I think it's super cheap. Was my first thought. $1,500. You should be charging $15,000.
Well, we actually have Netflix in a box for $10,000, which we have not ever sold yet, and I hope to God we never do, because I don't know how we're going to build Netflix in a box for $10,000. The first person who buys that is actually going to get $50,000 of development for $10,000. The value of it, though, is that after we do it the first time, and we have to do it again, we'll actually be able to do it very efficiently.
Yes.
But this Netflix in a box, it's on our pages of additional services under the player, FolioVision.player, and then there's extra services or something. I'm hoping that nobody ever buys that. Even though it's the most expensive thing we have, it would actually be the toughest one for us to do.
I'm gonna talk to some of my bigger clients and see if I can pitch them on a video.
Netflix in a box? No, I was sort of kidding about it. I mean, we'd actually be very excited about having somebody who was really serious about doing, a high-end video site like that, where everything works and it works like Netflix. We'd actually be very excited about doing it, because part of the reason that Folio Vision is successful is that I'm actually really excited about this technology. I love to help people communicate. I love to make advanced technology work simply for people. And so I think if you were asking what the secret of a successful business is, I think at some point, I've read some of these same books that you've talked about just having a process and perfecting this process, and the system will win and you will have this very successful business. That's missing one ingredient, which is the passion for the thing that you're working with and working on. I mean, going back to Amazon again, Jeff Bezos, he's actually obsessed with retail marketing. He's really passionate about providing great customer service and really low prices. It's not just an act for him. The guy at the top of the pole, he's really excited about it. If you talk about then the success of Apple, for instance, Steve Jobs was really excited about technology. He actually had he invented a lot of the patents for design. There was a recent one that I was, the MagSafe. Actually, do I have enough power to do it? Yeah, I probably do. This thing here, Steve Jobs is co-patent inventor of it. He cared enough about the technology to invent a better way to plug in your laptop. And so I think you have to be careful that whatever business you go into, you are close enough to it and feel strongly enough about it that you can push it to that next level. Which is, I mean, you really are interested in membership sites, which is why I guess people love to work with you.
That's actually not true in my case.
No?
No, it isn't. It's a bit of, my dad told me this a long time ago. It's always stuck. He said, this was in college when I was trying to sort of figure out what am I going to do with my life, and I was studying music and he didn't approve. We're from Ukraine, so he's this hard-boiled Soviet scientist. He was a physicist back in the USSR. Now he's a programmer, SAS programmer, high-level statistical analysis, very cerebral kind of stuff. And so he said, well, why don't I teach you programming? And I immediately viscerally felt that this is not interesting to me at all. I tried to dabble it a little bit, but I'm just not interested in programming. And he said, no, come on, you got to try it. And I just refused and refused. And he says, there's a Russian saying, the appetite comes with the food. And that saying is true. It wasn't true in that case, because after about an hour I said, fuck this. But I think the appetite really does come with the food. Sometimes you get pleasure out of doing something well and out of being one of the most competent people in your sphere. And I do derive tremendous pleasure from that. But for me, it's very much a means to an end of doing something that I'm much more passionate about, such as music. You mentioned your creative pursuits, and I don't think it's necessarily required to be quote unquote passionate, but you do have to derive satisfaction enough to where you keep bettering yourself and educating yourself and being the best in your sphere. At least that's my case. For everyone it's different, but since you brought it up, I thought I'd give a little bit of...
No, it's interesting that you give me the counterpoint, but I think you would be more successful, Vic, if you would then do membership sites in the music area.
You are reading my mind, man, because that's exactly what I've been considering. I went to a conference, and the viewers and listeners might find this useful as well. I went to a conference recently, a business conference, and one of the speakers was John Logar, who, I don't know if you know him, but he's this high-level consulting guy. He teaches people to get 6, 7-figure clients, 5, 6, 7-figure clients. And the way to do this, the way to get entree into these bigger clients is basically to go where they hang out, which is associations, events, trade shows, and you sort of have to learn how to maneuver in those spaces. But every industry, be it the music industry, the manufacturing industry, the software industry, they all have these associations. And you can actually go to these association websites, find the listings of high-level executives and CEOs, including their name and email and phone number, and get in touch with them. Say like, look, what is it that you are going through right now? What can I help with? Find out what they need, craft a solution, and sell it to them. And a lot of these people have continuing education of some sorts, e-learning. Those are all kind of opportunities to sell membership sites. So just to go to your point. But I want to get back to you.
Yeah, but if you would have more fun. It's not just a question of being more of success, but you would actually enjoy it more if you were going to music gatherings. You have a certain expertise in membership sites, and if you went to music gatherings, you would have an affinity with the people. You would have experience. Music is an area where people need membership sites badly, and membership sites is a big topic, but membership sites in the music industry for small to medium-sized publishers it's a great area, and it needs its guru. And so I would suggest that to take your success to the next level, find a way to bring the passion back in.
Get my groove back. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you gotta love it.
Okay, I will put. Sorry, I was just gonna say I will put that in my pipe and smoke it.
Going back to the employee thing and these excellent employees and these standards and everything, this is the way to run a small company. I don't know how people run companies with 1,000 people in them or 5,000 people in them, because you won't be able to universally enforce these same standards.
No, you lose control of the culture.
You lose some control of the culture, and unless you're in a superbly profitable business, you won't be able to hire that many A-level people. I think Google says they do it, and I think Apple says they do it. I don't know if it's true or not, but the processes we're talking about work in boutique size companies.
So they don't scale linearly, is what you're saying?
No. No, you can't have the boss of the company interviewing everybody and monitoring their individual progress, right? In a bigger company. So you'd actually have to hire people who could do that for you. And I don't know about successfully giving away control at that level. Like I don't know how you do it. Larry Ellison does it. He runs a company called Oracle. I read his biography. They've sold a lot of really crappy products over the years, but he manages to retain really big clients and charge them again and again, year after year, to fix the bugs in his crappy software. And he manages to have, I don't know if it's 3,000 or 10,000 people working for Oracle all over the world. And he does it, but that's a different category of work. And remember, it starts with him being able to really extract big bucks from his corporate clients, so that he has the means to be able to hire a lot of expensive people.
Well, you mentioned Oracle, and I want to kind of get into tools that you find indispensable in your business. What are the tools, apps, maybe even physical processes and tools that are indispensable to running your business and running it efficiently?
Oh, okay, apps. We tried to cut back, and there's one app that we use now which is core to our business. It's teamwork.com. We were originally big Basecamp users.
I love Teamwork.
Do you?
Yeah, Teamwork Desk is great.
Yeah, so we use now, and it's fantastic they've added these products. We use the desk. We started with the project management, and then we use the desks now, and we use their chat. I have to say, okay, we love the projects. We like the desk a lot. It's a new product. And we hate the chat. but we still use it because it's a single login.
Yeah.
And so it's simplification. It used to be, until recently, we had our own chat server. And we had Freshdesk, which I only have good things to say. If you're not using Teamwork, Freshdesk is probably a slightly better help desk than Teamwork Desk. They're competitive. One Teamwork Desk is probably a little bit simpler and easier to use. Freshdesk is probably a little bit more powerful, but they're both good solutions. But we moved to Teamwork Desk to be able to have everybody with a single login. And what they've done with Teamwork Desk, which makes it awesome, is they will bill you per ticket. And so that means I can have all 25 people in the company in Teamwork Desk, whereas Freshdesk wanted to bill me $15 a month for everybody I had in the system.
Ooh, yeah.
And so then I'm paying $500 a month for actually, I couldn't bring all the people into the system, so we only had a few of us, which made it less efficient for us. So Teamwork is awesome. Their desk is a great solution for a help desk. I wouldn't move away if you already have a convincing chat solution, whether it's HipChat or Slack or something else. I wouldn't, or even Homebrew. I wouldn't rush to the chat, but the single login helps us. What we don't use any Adobe software anymore. We have some legacy licenses when they were still selling licenses. There's no way we're paying $70 a month per workstation. That's medieval serfdom, where you pay every month to have like just a single desk. You'll say, well, Teamwork, you're paying for it every month. Teamwork, we pay $150 a month, and we have 50 people in it and 500 clients. So it's the different numbers. But what Adobe is offering is medieval serfdom, where you actually don't own your tools. And so we won't even support it. We'll have nothing to do with that. What else do we love? We love small developers. Like, let me go over to my other screen here. We use these little Mac things like Witch from Manytricks, and we use something called Typinator. Typinator is from a little company called Ergonis here in Austria. And all they do, well, they have a few apps, but the key one is this text expansion utility. So I have this huge library of things that I say all the time, or boilerplate, and I just type a few characters and out it comes. I can go through, thanks to Typinator and Keyboard Maestro. It's an Australian guy down closer to you. Peter and Lewis, he was the guy who wrote the original Interarchy FTP program. Keyboard Maestro lets you create macros for your computer. So I can press a combination of keys and it will go through 7 or 8 steps for me.
Wow.
And what's awesome about it is when you use things like Typinator and Keyboard Maestro properly, I can go through 300 emails and read and reply to 100 of them in about 2 hours.
Wow.
And some of those replies are 10 or 15-minute ones. So it's not like all of them are little ones, but because I'm saving so much time on the little ones, I then actually have the time to reply at more length to the ones that require more time. And I think if you're running a company, these small efficiencies are really important. Now you have to be careful because you can get too wrapped up in the software, and sometimes it happens to me that you spend so much time trying to save time with these utilities that you're actually losing time on it. So, but those are some, we love to support small publishers, like small software houses who are creating very specific utilities. Another way, great efficiency we have, we don't update our OSs. We have a few machines running on the latest version of, like we have a few machines running on Yosemite. I don't think we have any on El Capitan. And we have then one more on Mavericks. I happen to have one on Mountain Lion for testing, but everybody else is actually all running Snow Leopard, for example. And we save an enormous amount of time because our computers, they just run. And that we don't have to spend all the time updating them all the time. So you try to avoid updates. Our Windows computers almost all run on Windows 7. So nobody has to wrap their mind around on Windows 8 or other such trouble. So I would say you try to get good software and stick with it without getting into this update hell. The other thing is don't use too many tools. Try to keep your tool box. Try to have the tools you need to do your work really well. And if you have a tool in your box, learn to use it well.
All very sound advice. I'm definitely going to check out Typinator. That sounds really awesome because I answer a lot of email and it sucks. I don't know anybody who likes email. But I think we're kind of running short on time. There's a lot of things I'd like to ask you, but I think I'm going to leave it at 2 final questions. And the first one is that I noticed that you're very vocal, you're very opinionated, you have a strong force of personality. This is one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show. And you just actually sort of demonstrated it because you said, look, we don't use Adobe, because screw them, that's why, in a sense. And that's not what you're saying, I know, but what I mean is you have your terms and you're going to stand by them. And I'm curious how that sort of affects the culture of your business and how you believe that influences your success as a whole and your effectiveness as a business person and as a leader.
Actually, that's interesting because I guess if we were really a corporate company and we were based in Silicon Valley, I wouldn't actually be able to say that because the people at Adobe would then try to stop us from working with other corporate clients. But because we focus on small and medium-sized businesses, those small and medium-sized businesses, they're not really concerned. They're getting screwed by Adobe as well, and so they don't mind me saying it. So if you want to work in a corporate environment, you probably have to be more careful. But actually, I'm not worried about working in a corporate environment. I'm worried about making the world a better place. And so it's a small step, but an important step is to making the world a better place is breaking the Adobe monopoly. There's no reason that some company that cares not at all about us and is working for its chief executive officers now and its shareholders, there's no reason that that company should have a monopoly on creative tools. And so how does it affect our business? Yeah, I guess people who are really straight-laced would be less comfortable here. But we wanted to get a parrot recently for the office because I guess our office is a bit like a pirate ship. We're like the nice pirates, Robin Hood, so to speak. We didn't talk about WordPress today, but I think WordPress has become this huge racket to extract money from people who just want websites built. The constant updates, the constant sites breaking, the constant security breakdowns, the constant database problems. This is nonsense. It's just extracting extra money from people who want a simple publishing tool. And so I see Foliovision as sort of a Robin Hood entity trying to make the world of technology less expensive and trying to make the world of technology more accessible and trying to make the world of technology more sustainable.
It's a big vision.
Yeah, that's the best kind, no?
I think so. I think what I've seen, and maybe you've seen this in your various businesses, is that mindset will take you a long, long way. And as your mindset evolves, I don't mean to get all woo-woo, but I think there is a bit of a law of attraction effect that, look, you feel that your goals grow, your vision grows, and you start moving in that direction and the stars sort of start aligning. I'll give you an example. I didn't think 2 years ago when I started, or 3 years ago I should say, when I started this business, and I was doing freelance work for $15 an hour, I didn't think that I'd be charging $250 an hour a few years later, or that I'd have $1,000 clients on retainer. It wasn't in my reality. And right now I'm thinking $20,000 client is kind of out there, but now I'm starting to think, well, maybe it's not so far-fetched as long as the value exchange is there for both parties. So mindset is huge.
Mindset is huge, but you can both overestimate and underestimate mindset. For example, that was really great that you did those years at $15 an hour and got really good at what you did, and you can actually add that value back.
Exactly.
The danger is people take mindset and they take marketing and they say, okay, I'm going to learn how to extract this money from clients, even though I'm not providing commensurate value. That is a very, very dangerous mindset. I actually prefer to give people a lot more than their money's worth.
You know, that brings up sort of an interesting question, which is if somebody's willing to, and this is going to get into economic discussion, but if somebody's willing to pay you X amount, then doesn't that prove that you're providing commensurate value? Otherwise, they'd stop paying you?
No, you can trick people into paying money that they really shouldn't be paying. And actually, a lot of the other problem is a lot of high-end contracts in my field in web development are actually used as money laundering. The government pays somebody $1 million or 300,000 for a website, which should really cost 10, 15, I'm being generous, 10, 15, 20,000, even done properly. Okay, fine. Maybe this website, which cost $1 million, should cost $50,000, 50,000 euros. So there's a lot of, you see, this is the problem. As you go up the scale, and that's why the U.S. defense industry, for example, is bankrupting the entire country, is because they're paying billions of dollars per plane now. You know, it's insane that the product can't cost that much money. So to say that always because somebody's willing to pay that amount of money that you're providing that value, I don't think that's true.
Okay. I understand what you're saying, and I have heard from various contractors that a government contract is highly coveted because they're so indiscriminate about. Of course, they're indiscriminate. They're spending your money. They're not spending their money. But that is an interesting point for sure. I guess the difficulty would be to find where you feel you're providing the value that you're charging for. I mean, how do you arrive at an objective evaluation of I'm providing, you know, $1,000 worth of value per month to this client versus, well, this is only really worth $200 or $300. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, there are areas you can work in. For example, one of the areas we work in is real estate. And there is more money in real estate than there is in cupcakes, for instance. And so, therefore, the clients are able to pay more money but the services are actually a little bit different and they require more background. So even if the service superficially looks similar, to do it right in that area requires years of experience. So I'm not sure it's quite as simple as that. I want to take it one step back, though, which is before Henry Ford started making cars, there were other people making cars. I think some of them were like Chrysler and Buick and things like that. And they were family businesses. And they would get together and they would build each car by hand, one guy or two guys building a whole car. And so in relative terms, a car would be costing $20,000, and then Henry Ford was able to sell his cars for $2,000. And his cars weren't actually much worse. They were actually more mechanically sound, not quite as luxurious. And so it goes back to your thing about process. If you follow a process, you can take the price of your product way down and provide a really great value and continue to do to make a decent profit. For example, with those video membership sites, we're really good at all of those steps. So we actually even make money. It's not because we provide a less high quality video membership site. Our video membership sites are amazing. We use something called Restrict Content Pro, and then we have some custom code we add to it, and then we integrate it with our player, and it's a fantastic package. And we've actually done what Henry Ford did with automobiles, except we've done it with video membership sites. So I think you can add this amazing value if you use process and you care about it. It's very interesting, though, the question of, are you worth something if somebody's willing to pay you all of this money for that?
And I don't think there's an answer. I don't think it's one of those questions that has a really well-defined answer.
Yeah, but if you're relying on spin and motion and bling to get those big contracts, then it's the wrapping paper and not what's inside the package. Now, the wrapping paper is a big sell, especially, your wife or your girlfriend, she'd probably prefer to have a more modest gift, well wrapped. So wrapping paper has its place in the sphere of commerce. But, relying on wrapping paper and not putting enough inside the package, I think is a way to destroy your business, because sure, you will take money from people for a year, 2 years, in some cases even 3 or 4 years, but then your business will be rotten to the core, because everybody will know that inside the wrapping paper there's coal. And then your business cannot be restored. There's no going back. Once you've not been providing value for 2, 3, 4 years, your company and your brand will be worthless. And it's happened to many great brands over the years, so that nobody actually wants to buy them. I mean, just coming to the tip of my tongue is, for example, HP. They can hardly sell a computer anymore because they used to have a reputation for producing amazing high-quality computers, and actually they've been producing plastic crap for many years now. And now they're separating the company into consumer and enterprise because they can't get their enterprise customers to buy the consumer crap. So I don't know what they're actually going to do with the making computers part, because they've destroyed what was 20 years of brand equity by doing exactly what you said. They had the reputation of HP, and people were willing to pay a premium for what were some of the crappiest computers I've seen.
Yeah, agreed.
So, go ahead.
Okay, so on that note, if we could wrap up, what would be the kind of top of mind, general, cliche, but not cliche business advice that you could offer to people who are trying to make... And by the way, also one thing I forgot to mention, I'm glad I just thought of this, is we were talking about recurring revenue and why it's so important for people who are looking to sell their company down the line. And sometimes you're not even aware that you're going to, but some people just wind up selling their companies. Probably the most valuable asset of a company is the recurring billings, in addition to maybe any Rolodex you have. So if you could sort of leave people with your nugget of wisdom in terms of building a recurring revenue business that's profitable and sellable and fun to work in, please share that with the listeners.
Well, I think we covered a lot of it. You should pick an area that you do care about, because it'll make it a lot easier to go to work. And then you should make sure you like your customers as a group and as individuals. And then you should work with people that you also like. That's how you add the fun to it. And the way you make a recurring revenue business easy to run is by offering real value, by making what you're offering actually worth many times what you're selling it for. A lot of these people talking about how to make money online, they're talking about how you can get people to pay. You shouldn't have to get people to pay. I have a lineup of people outside my door who want to have us build things for them. We cannot build the things fast enough as the line grows. Why? Because we do great work, and people come to us just by word of mouth. And so I would say offer that kind of value, and the customers will line up. Stop thinking about how to extract the maximum out of your customers and think about how you can do the maximum for you. If you worry primarily about your customers, you cannot help but be successful.
That is a Twitter. That's a tweet right there. Good stuff, Alec.
Great talking to you, Vic.